Yes, Siri, I will. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Lori. Thank you for your committee for the opportunity to be here to give recognition to a very good friend who I've met over 2 decades ago as a young lobbyist in the State House. In fact, both of us were a little bit younger back then and had a little bit less gray hair, but this is an award that is a long time coming. My colleague Eric Stafford, who works with the Kansas Chamber of Commerce, and I both got together in February and thought it's been too long, Phil's made too much of an impact that we shouldn't nominate him for this award. And I think when we originally applied, it may not have been for the Father Becker Award, but when we look back, that is the one that makes the most sense because Phil has been our guiding light in Kansas for over 20 years, helping us to shepherd legislation through. So as I said, I met Phil when we were both a little younger. It didn't take us long to find issues to work together on. As I said, I am the executive director for KSSHRM, and so everything HR quickly became what we would rally against. Phil has always been that go-to for us in the business community because he's willing to dive deep into the information. He's provides always that practical impact, right? Lawmakers come up with great ideas, we lobbyists come up with great ideas, but Phil would put that face on it that would really put the real world perimeters around it. And you know, honestly, Phil, you probably should have been on retainer all these years because of the hours that you have put in to come up with our harebrained ideas. I think you said over 50 pieces of legislation that you've looked at, you've helped us work on, and many of those became legislation. Often he's referred as the godfather of UI in the legislature. Legislators now just call him directly. They don't come through Eric or I because they know Phil's gonna have the answer and they go directly to him. We've worked on reform policies, including restructuring. We went from a fixed system to an arrayed system to find more, we went from an arrayed system to a fixed system to find more certainty for employers and to really show their experience. And that's become a fairer system. We've looked at modernizing our system and looked at integrity solutions. Though Kansas legislators and agency officials were concerned that these changes would risk solvency in our Kansas Trust Fund, after just 1 year, our taxes were lower for most employers, but the trust fund also grew to levels that exceeded the projections. Kansas was one of the states that was hit hardest by the pandemic for the UI fraud and abuse. Over 300,000 Kansans and their identities were stolen, and criminals were seeking UI benefits. Calculations of almost $600 million in fraudulent payments went out to because of an outdated system and some other unfortunate errors that were going on in the system. Phil, along with many others, actually in this room today, helped lead the reform efforts and advise legislators and measures to improve the overall system. After decades, the Kansas Modernization Project is now funded and is finally underway. Once completed, administrators, employers, and workers will be reaping the benefits of a modernized system. So many of the improvements of the Kansas UI system are in large part the result of the research and the analysis that was provided by Phil Hayes. He has dedicated more hours than anyone could count, mining hundreds and thousands of data points, and his wife Amy is here. I'm sure she could attest to that. But comparing other states, analyzing those data points, and uncountable numbers of different iterations of the legislation, Phil would help us achieve our goals of tax fairness, security in the trust fund, and ultimately lower tax burden on our employers. The Father Becker Award recognizes excellence in UI research that enables sound policy. Mr. Hayes has provided leadership in research that produced significant positive results for the UI system. The numbers don't lie. Phil actually helped me pull these together. But Kansas has experienced over a 26% reduction in our contributions, which is almost $1 billion since 2016. That is making a real difference for our Kansas employers. That's making us more competitive, but at the same time, we're protecting and having the integrity of what the UI system should be. And that's a safety net for those employees who lose their job at no fault of their own. Our projections for 2024 contributions also, again, look great. We're estimating that employers will save another estimated $178 million, which is a 38% estimated savings. So Phil, on behalf of the Kansas business community, Thank you for all of your tireless hours. I don't know where we would be without you. And we should talk about that retainer because we've got some more work to do as we continue. And so let's make sure we keep you around. Thanks for all the efforts, Phil.
Hello, everyone. Bear with me. I jotted some notes down on my phone. Probably a mistake. I should have went with a printout with larger font. But in all seriousness, I just want to say thank you to Lori, to the committee, to Doug from UWC. Natalie, thank you for the kind words. It's really been interesting just trying to package together what I'm going to say to kind of encompass over the last 20 years and the journey that it's been. And so I'm going to kind of stick to the script here just so I don't overlook anything here. I will say that it's difficult for me to show how appreciative I am in words. To be considered as well as selected for the Father Becker Award is a great privilege. For those of you that did meet Father Becker, I feel like I missed out on an opportunity. I went back and actually have diving into some of his research and even look at the papers that he published in the early 80s. I think there's a lot of parallels to what we're seeing now and some of the arguments that were presented. But I do want to take this opportunity to extend my thankfulness for receiving the award. It certainly acknowledges my work, and I'm happy for the encouragement and support throughout this journey. I do wish to express my heartfelt gratitude for all that have been involved. First, I'd like to thank the late George Arnold, the founder of my company, for planting the seeds years and years ago that set me kind of on this path. And as Natalie alluded, some of the numbers when you think about going from the array to the fixed system, as an organization, what drove me was the ups and downs, severe peaks and valleys of my tax burden as a business owner. We would see fluctuations from $359,000 one year to $126,000 the next, and then up to $475,000. So we were certainly looking at predictability as kind of the forefront. I'm happy to report over the last 7 years, we've paid in less collectively in 7 years than we have in a single year in the 7 years prior to us going to the fixed system. Certainly has been a great testament to the work that was done for not only my business, but other organizations throughout Kansas. I'd like to thank Jill Statz, my business partner for the last 25 years. KDUL staff is interesting, is reflecting that this journey has kind of encompassed or been through 7 secretaries, but there were some key instrumental administrators that were involved in this process with the business community, with labor, with administrators. Certainly Justin McFarland, Brett Flashbarth, who is now with NASWA, was a key critical partner for us. Peter Brady, who is now with Change and Innovation Agency, was critical. Peter had the disadvantage of assuming that role right before the pandemic, and UI is complex enough, let alone to try to take it in a Cliff Notes version. Working with the economists with the agency, and then Secretary Amber Schultz, if you're in the room, you know, she's really picked up the mantle and she's going to be a good partner and has been a good partner in her recent tenure. The other part that I would say is extremely impactful is working with legislative champions. It is really difficult to pass practical policy unless you have somebody that can understand the nuances and that wants to get in the weeds, at least maybe waist deep. And I just want to throw a kudos out to Representative Marvin Klebb and some of the early adoptions of the reforms. He was a Commerce Chair in the House. I know in those early days I was told to go on a data diet, but it's really hard to explain the nuances of UI and the complexities, especially in the taxing piece, without the numbers. House Commerce Chair currently is Sean Tarwater, has been an absolute champion for us. As Natalie alluded, we've had 49 bills since 2010. We've played offense and defense on several. We've passed 14, and I would say 5 of those were really substantial. The Business Coalition, KSSHRM with Natalie and her partner Marley, the Kansas Chamber, Eric Stafford has been critical, NFIB, State Director Dan Murray. UIS, who's a TPA that serves a lot of Kansas, Jeff Oswald, was certainly instrumental. Doug, I know we've traded countless emails and phones through the years, and has been a great advocate and kind of a sounding board and to go through. And then most importantly, I just wish to publicly acknowledge and say thank you to my wife of 30 years, Amy. She's offered tremendous support and encouragement. There's been a certain level of frustration that comes along with the legislative process with this, but she has been instrumental. She served as my primary sounding board, and I always share the story that she says, well, I don't know anything about this. And I tell her she's my perfect audience because I got to go talk to legislators. And honestly, she's been proven instrumental to really help me craft and concise and bring clarity to the issue and make it, get it out of the weeds. So again, thank you everybody. It's truly an honor to be recognized for this special award. I appreciate you.